Okay, so this is Monday, November 9th lesson. And we're just going to pick right up where we left off with, again, Muhammad taking over Mecca with his, huge army, and then taking over and conquering areas again around Mecca and Medina. And then 2 years after his conquering of Mecca, he is going to die. And he is actually going to die without a living son. He does not have an heir. He only has a living daughter named Fatima. And she is married to Ali. And y'all need to kind of pay attention to this because this is going to creep back up and honestly is a huge foundational, I don't want to say issue, but it's like a foundational piece to the two branches of Islam that are Sunni and Shia. So there was a group of Muslims that believed that the successors of Muhammad should be from his bloodline. And so Ali should become the first caliph. And then it should be hereditary after that, he and Fatima's children and grandchildren and such. But then there were others that didn't believe that that was necessary. There were others that were kind of like, I don't really think it matters if it's a blood relation as long as, it was somebody in his inner council and we have faith in and we believe will do a good job for us. And so he had, and he had like an inner council, and one of the members of that, kind of council and his right hand man, his like buddy, and also, kind of main advisor was Abu Bakr. Abu Bakr, yes, was also his father-in-law, but you have to understand, after Khadijah, he is going to marry 10 more times. And culturally, that was very normal for sheiks. You have to remember, I told you this in the last video, he is the leader, political leader. So therefore, he is the leader of the Quraysh tribe, and therefore, he's a sheik. And so sheiks, again, in Arabia at that time frame would have multiple wives. And even the Quran states that you can have multiple wives as long as you can take care of them equally. So polygamy is still which is multiple wives. Polygamy, monogamy, monogamy, one, polygamy, multiple. Polygamy is still practiced by some Muslim families, again, but most of them are kind of wealthier because it specifically states in the Quran you have to be able to financially take care of them. But yeah, sheiks in the Middle East that still are there today have multiple wives. So anyways, he had 10 more, and Aisha was probably the most like beloved, revered wife of Muhammad. I want to say she was like 22 or so when Muhammad dies at the age of 61. So I'll let you do the math as to how much older he was than her. But again, that was also pretty common, and unfortunately why they justify child brides in radical areas of the Middle East. But anyways, she was a very devout Muslim, very devoted to him, and that is Abu Bakr's daughter. And so, not only is Abu Bakr Muhammad's chief advisor, but it is, he is also the dad of, again, probably the most well-respected wife behind Khadijah. But Khadijah, again, had been older than Muhammad, and she had already died by the time Muhammad died. So Aisha kind of took the place of Khadijah as like head, most respected wife. So anyways, Abu Bakr will become the first caliph or successor of Muhammad. And he is going to, grow the kingdom, just, the empire, the caliphate. That's also what you can call it. The empire is also known as the caliphate. He is going to, make it even bigger through conquest, yes, or the term is also known as jihad. Jihad is talked about in the Quran. It's oftentimes kind of a controversial term today because terrorists use it to justify their they use it to justify their attacks, and say it's in the Quran, and that this is what Muhammad did, this is what the first four caliphs did. Even the Umayyads, as the empire grew, yes, they grew through conquest, just like any other empire does. That you don't just like walk in and be like, hi, excuse me, I'm going to take over. It's through conquest. And so culturally, again, at that time, super common. I mean, guys, come on. We've studied empire after empire at this point, and you all know how that happens. It's through conquering. And again, it is talked about in the Quran as something to do to create a more Muslim world, to create more Muslims. Again, the biggest difference between Muhammad and what the Quran says and like Jesus Christ and what the New Testament says is, yes, Jesus tells his disciples go out make more Christians, but not through like militant conquering. Whereas the Quran specifically says, go and triumph and conquer in the name of God, through jihad. And so again, very, very differing approaches, but, still there nonetheless. And there will be tons of conquering in the name of Jesus, and look at Charlemagne, convert or die. And so, again, all religions have their dark moments. So again, jihad is kind of always is kind of a touchy word because, again, terrorists use that as a justification for their actions. But regardless of how it's, how you feel about it, how it's viewed, from a historical perspective, they did use jihad to build the Arab Empire, and make it bigger. So one of the things that the warriors were always promised, is if you die in battle, in the name of God whilst jihading, your sins are completely washed away, and you have a one-way ticket to heaven. God will be there open armed. Some radical terrorist groups, I'm sure some of you have heard this, also believe that they will be presented with 72 virgins. This is actually not true at all. So there is a supplemental text, or it's not true in the sense that like 99% of your Muslims do not believe that is what happens if you are a martyr to your faith. But what they do is, okay, so there's the Quran, and then there is a supplemental text called the Hadith. And the Hadith is like a collection of sayings that Muhammad either truly did say, or they are like, it's like a collection sometimes of hearsay. And some of them are very well sourced. Like some of them are truly written by like his wives or even the caliphs themselves who were truly around Muhammad. And and so the things that they wrote down could very well be things that Muhammad was saying, to do. And so some of them you can read and go, okay, like this is part of their rules and some of the things that Muhammad wanted to see happen. But then some of them are awful. Like some of them are like, Muhammad's cousin heard him say this and they told my neighbor. And so I'm going to write this down as a hadith because it has to be true. Well, it's like a game of, telephone. Probably not quite accurate, by the time it gets to that person and they write it down and consider it a hadith. That is where the 72 virgins comes from. It actually comes from a very, very ill-sourced hadith. And again, 99% of your Muslims do not believe that is the truth. But these radical Islamic terrorist groups use that on impressionable young men as a incentive to, be a martyr to the faith. Not only do you get one-way ticket to heaven and all your sins washed away, but hey, you've got these 72 really pretty, beautiful ladies that are virgins waiting for you when you get there. And so, it's always something that gets kind of brought up in classes. What is the validity of that? Well, it's not. So, Okay, so Abu Bakr dies. You're going to have two caliphs in between Abu Bakr and Ali, and you're going to have a lot of caliphs over the years that also are assassinated. They're going to continue conquering territories and growing the Arab Empire. And no, it wasn't. It wasn't like Charlemagne, and it wasn't like convert or die. Charlemagne was really hardcore about the pagans. He was especially mean to the Saxons, if you remember. But it was convert, or we're going to make your life difficult and uncomfortable. And so there were all kinds of taxes. Sometimes you had to wear like a badge if you weren't Muslim, which of course created ridicule and basically like a second class status. There were all these kind of bans that they couldn't, and regulations on them. For example, they couldn't build or repair their place of worship. Well, I mean, hell, okay, if a Muslim army comes in and tears down the Christian or church or the Jewish synagogue, and they're like, well, we control this area now, and you can still be Jewish and you can still be Christian, but you have to pay a tax. You have to wear this badge so that basically we can ridicule you. And oh, I know we just tore your church down. You can't rebuild that. Oh, and you can't practice your religion in public. Well, I mean, again, it's better than convert or die. Don't get me wrong, but it's still not like, you can just keep your faith and freely worship and all of that stuff. That there were some rules and regulations there. Okay, so Ali is going to become the fourth caliph, and he's going to have a big rival in Muawiyah, who is the governor of Syria, and he's super wealthy. He's known for having this really big, private, very effective army. And so a lot of the Muslims at the time are kind of like, hey, like, we kind of want Muawiyah to be our caliph because we think that he'll probably do a little bit better job. He's got money, he's got resources. Look at his army. He can conquer even more land. And so he is going to become the fifth caliph. And he's going to quickly move to make the caliphate hereditary. So he sets up his family as a dynasty. And again, this is what creates the true blue final divide between Shia and Sunni Muslims. Okay, Shia Muslims again are going to look at that as a slap in the face to Muhammad and his family. They believe, again, they've always believed that Ali and the descendants of he and his wife, which again was Muhammad's daughter, should have been the caliphs all along. And, and then you have the Sunni who are like, I don't think it really matters as long as we are gaining more territory, gaining more resources, and creating more Muslims in the world. And as you can see, by 750, the Umayyad Caliphate, it grows the empire a pretty good bit. A lot of that had already been taken over by the first four caliphs, but the Umayyads definitely add to the map of the Arab Empire, and they will take the Arab Empire territorially to its height. And just FYI, that under the Umayyad control, they're also, as it says, they're going to attack Constantinople, and the Arab Empire is going to become the biggest rival in that region to the Byzantines, which again is the reason why the Crusades happens. You have to think, who's in control of Jerusalem? Well, the Arab Empire and the Muslims. They've even beaten the Sasanian Persians. So, again, pretty major threat. They're going to take over, the entire North African coastline. Guys, they're going to push up into Spain, modern day Spain and Portugal, which is the Iberian Peninsula. So many students don't really realize this, and they're always surprised by it. Guys, the Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal, will be controlled by the Arab Muslim Caliphate for like 700 years. Okay, it's not until the late 1300s and early 1400s with the Reconquista that Spain and Portugal gets back underneath Christian control. You can go to Spain and go to some of their palaces, and you're going to think you're walking around in the Middle East. There are Muslim mosques that were built in, the 9th, 8th, 9th, 10th centuries that are in Spain, that of course get moved back to, Roman Catholic churches. But I mean, it's there's a huge amount of historical influence in Spain and Portugal from the time that they were a part of the Arab Caliphate. And a lot of students, of course, are like, what? Because Spanish, anytime you think of the Spanish or the Portuguese, I mean, you automatically are like, well, Catholic. Well, that doesn't start happening with them until the 13 and 1400s. But kind of going back, sorry, I got off track. But again, the when the Umayyads take over and create the caliphate based upon them, that's hereditary. Again, that creates the huge official split in Islam between the Shia and the Sunni. The Shia are definitely the minority, even to this day. The Sunni are the majority. Most of your kind of radicalized terrorist cells come out of the Shia branch of Islam. They're much more kind of like fundamentalists when it comes to like literal interpretations of the Quran, whereas the Sunni are much more progressive and much more moderate. And again, like most of your Sunni Muslims are peaceful and can't stand the radicalized terrorist cells, any more than we do. It does talk about Hussein, which is Ali's second son. He's going to have a civil war against the Umayyads in 680, but he's going to get like wiped out. It's, and so, that happens. But this is a great map to look at in regards to, seeing how the empire grew, when, and who under. And so, again, this is a great map to look at. As you can see, they had military campaigns into the kingdom of the Franks, which was Charlemagne's kingdom. And so, you can see they're going to have military campaigns towards Constantinople. So, I mean, Europe is very, very well aware, and even at times fighting, the Arab Empire and the incoming Muslims, which again is pretty foundational information for understanding the Crusades, which is coming up next week. So this is where we stopped today in class. We are going to watch this crash course video first thing tomorrow, and then they are going to take their formative assessment. So that is what I want you guys online to do as well. Watch this video, and then tomorrow will be the formative assessment on Unit 4. Okay, so I will see you guys again in video form on Wednesday. So, see you guys then.